Have you ever stopped to truly wonder, why is it the kindest people, the most genuinely good-hearted souls seem to suffer the most? Why do you pour out your loyalty, your precious time, your unfiltered truth only to end up abandoned, betrayed, watching everything you built crumble to dust? Meanwhile, those without a single shred of conscience who move through life with a chilling indifference seem to glide effortlessly untouched, while you're locked in a constant brutal war with yourself, a silent battle that grinds you down daily. No one ever told you this. Not really. And they didn't because they simply don't want you to know. Because the very moment you wake up, the second your eyes truly open to the reality of this world, you stop being so damn easy to control. This isn't some polite, philosophical lecture designed to make you feel good. This is a visceral warning. This is a raw, bleeding truth, one that you've been deliberately, desperately ignoring for far too long. If you still cling to the naive belief that simply being good automatically earns you justice, then I need you to stop watching right here. Turn it off. Because you're not losing in life, because you're not good enough. You're losing because you don't even realize you're in a ruthless game. And worse, you're the kind of player who doesn't even know the fundamental rules. Machiavelli, he never told you to be evil, never once. What he told you was to stop being so excruciatingly naive. He urged you to understand that in this world, the true survivor isn't the nicest person, isn't the one with the biggest heart. It's the one who possesses the brutal clarity to know precisely when to stay silent, when to be ice cold, and when to simply vanish without a trace, leaving everyone else wondering what just happened. If you're still clinging to that fragile fantasy of a fair world, then get ready. Because what you're about to hear will incinerate every comforting lie you were ever taught about morality, about goodness, and about who you truly are in this unforgiving landscape. So ask yourself right now, are you genuinely ready to hear the truth? If not, turn this off. If you are, then be quiet and truly listen. They never taught you how the world really works. Never. All they ever taught you was how to behave, how to passively hope, how to stay small, obedient, and unremarkable. You were raised to believe that if you just worked hard enough, stayed loyal, kept your head down, and always did what was right, everything would magically work out in the end. A comforting lie. But no one, not a single soul, ever prepared you for how to survive outright betrayal. No one warned you that your very kindness could become the most potent currency in someone else's cold, calculated manipulation. No one prepared you for the deafening silence that inevitably follows after you've poured out your entire soul, given absolutely everything, and received nothing but emptiness in return. This, my friend, is the searing pain they never bothered to put in school books. This is the agony of watching those you trusted most walk away the very second you cease to be useful. This is the gut-wrenching realization that your goodness was never reciprocated. It was ruthlessly exploited, not because you were inherently weak, but because you actually believed the game was fair. And Machiavelli. He never once believed in fairness. Why? Because fairness isn't a fundamental principle of reality. It's a saccharine bedtime story whispered softly to the obedient, designed to keep them docile. You weren't betrayed because you were bad. You were betrayed because you foolishly expected loyalty in a world that rewards leverage. It rewards influence. And here's the part that truly stings, the part that will keep you up at night. You gave them unfettered access to your precious time, to your sacred trust, to the most vulnerable parts of yourself that no one else ever saw. And they used it, not out of hatred, but out of chilling indifference. Picture this, you're standing in a suffocatingly dark room, clutching the pathetic remnants of everything you gave, while they've already forgotten your name, your face, your very existence. You thought loyalty was a virtue. They saw it as nothing more than a tool, Machiavelli didn't write for the admired, the celebrated. He wrote for the forgotten, for the man who gave too much, for the woman who stayed too long, for anyone who has ever stared into the void and quietly asked, "Why wasn't I enough?" You were enough. You were always enough. But you played the wrong game. You followed the soft, naive rules of morality in a world brutally built on cold, hard strategy. No one dared to tell you the raw truth: this world doesn't reward good people. It rewards useful people. It rewards valuable people. And value, my friend, isn't measured in raw effort. It's measured in perception, in control, in impeccable timing. Let's make this uncomfortably clear. If you are too kind without ironclad boundaries, they will drain you dry. If you are too loyal without undeniable leverage, they will use you until you're nothing but a husk. And if you are too forgiving without any consequence, they will forget you ever existed. Because the world doesn't operate on some ethereal concept of fairness. It operates on advantage. This is not a call to become cruel. It's a call to become aware. Because your innocence, if left unchecked and unprotected, will become your very cage. Your softness, if not armored with steel, will become your grave. You've been programmed since childhood to avoid conflict, to be polite, to never speak up when something feels deeply, fundamentally wrong. But let me ask you this brutally. Where has that silence gotten you? How many times have you swallowed your voice, choking back your truth, just to maintain some fragile false peace, while your spirit shattered silently behind closed doors? You suffer, but you do it quietly, thinking that's noble. It isn't. Machiavelli saw what the world desperately doesn't want you to see: that nobility without power is nothing but a pathetic performance. That suffering without a strategy is simply submission. And that if you don't learn how to protect yourself, how to strategically defend your space, they will simply keep taking. Not because they are inherently evil, but because they can. This is the true pain of not knowing the rules. This is the devastating pain of believing the system sees you, values you. It doesn't. It only sees your output, your obedience, your silence. And when you finally break, when you finally give up, it simply replaces you without a second thought. If any of this resonates with you, it's not because you're broken. It's because you're finally waking up. You're beginning to realize that maybe your suffering wasn't a mistake. It was the direct, inevitable result of being good in a system meticulously designed to reward something else entirely. And once you see that, once you truly grasp the game, everything changes. Because once you see the game, you can learn how to play it, not as a pawn, but as something far more dangerous. A player who sees, a player who waits, a player who learns to strike, not for petty revenge, but for the sake of balance, for self-preservation. That's what Machiavelli offers you. Not cruelty for cruelty's sake, not manipulation as an end in itself, but power. The kind of power that doesn't scream, it doesn't beg, it doesn't break. It simply stands unmoved, unshaken, and utterly unbothered by whether or not the world approves. This is how you begin. Not with anger, not with blame, but with the cold, hard truth. You were never taught how to survive. So now you will teach yourself. And before we move on, ask yourself this: if this pain was never personal, only systemic, what happens when you finally stop playing by their rules? The answer starts now. They dressed it up. They made it sound noble. They taught you that kindness was the ultimate virtue, that politeness was a profound power, that if you just stayed generous, humble, and endlessly soft, life would eventually reward you. But here's the brutal truth. Kindness without clarity is a trap. Kindness without boundaries is a weapon swiftly used against you. And kindness without awareness is not virtue. its submission tragically dressed up in the robes of morality. They told you to do the right thing, but they never explained who defines right. They said, turn the other cheek, but they never taught you how to defend yourself from the next inevitable blow. They glorified sacrifice, but they never ever showed you who truly profits from your bleeding. Machiavelli saw right through this manipulative game. He saw that society doesn't truly reward kindness. It rewards usefulness. It rewards leverage. It rewards those who understand the unspoken system and quietly bend it to their will. And while you were busy helping everyone else, no one was helping you. While you said yes to every demand, every request, they quietly forgot how to value your time, your energy. While you generously gave second chances, they ruthlessly took third, fourth, and fifth. Because society doesn't respect the perpetually kind. It respects the strategic, the one who knows precisely when to say no, when to walk away, when to give, and when to ruthlessly withhold. You weren't taught that. You were meticulously trained to be agreeable, to avoid conflict at all costs, to be liked by everyone. But being liked is not the same as being respected. And being respected is absolutely not the same as being safe. You can be loved by everyone on earth and still be used, drained, and discarded by all of them. Because people don't always treat you how you deserve. They treat you how you allow. Let that brutal truth sink in. If you tolerate disrespect, you don't deter it. You invite it. If you're always available, you become invisible. If you never set a boundary, they will push and push until nothing is left of you. This doesn't mean you stop being kind. It means you radically redefine kindness. Real kindness has a spine of steel. Real kindness knows when to say enough. Real kindness protects itself first, then gives from an overflowing well, not from an empty, depleted cistern. There is no virtue in being perpetually exhausted. There is no nobility in letting yourself be used, ground down, sacrificed. There is only silence, followed by bitter regret. And while you're still agonizing, wondering if you're being too harsh, they're already calculating how far they can push before you finally snap. You think saying yes makes you a good person. It doesn't. It makes you easy. Machiavelli would tell you a wise man knows when to appear kind. But a wiser one knows precisely when that kindness must end. Because fake morality is a prison. It keeps you apologizing for things you never did. It keeps you soft, vulnerable, and yielding in situations that demand granite-hard steel. Stop asking, what will they think of me? Start asking, why do I need their approval? Kindness isn't approval-seeking. It's strength under absolute control. So here's the new rule. Be kind but unpredictable. Be generous but selective. Be forgiving but never forgetful. Be good but never ever easy. Because in a world that relentlessly teaches you to sacrifice, the most powerful thing you can do is stop bleeding for those who wouldn't give you a single drop in return. That's not cruelty. That's self-respect. And self-respect is where real, untouchable power begins. And now ask yourself, what if your kindness wasn't the problem? What if it was just unguarded? Let's fix that. You've been told that showing emotion is a sign of authenticity, that it's strength to cry, that it's brave to be vulnerable. But let me ask you something brutal. When has your raw vulnerability ever protected you in a negotiation? When has your unfettered honesty ever stopped someone from betraying you the second it served their purpose? When has your emotional openness ever made the truly ruthless more merciful? Exactly. Machiavelli never said emotions were bad. He said they were dangerous, not because you feel them, but because others see them. And once they do, they know exactly where and how to strike. In the high-stakes game of power, visibility is liability, your anger. they'll skillfully provoke it. Your love, they'll ruthlessly leverage it. Your guilt, they'll weaponize it against you without a second thought. The truth is chillingly simple. He who controls his emotions controls the room. He who loses his emotions loses leverage. Do not misunderstand this. You are absolutely allowed to feel everything, every single raw human emotion. But you are absolutely not allowed to reveal everything. Control isn't suppression. Control is direction. It is taking that blazing fire within you and choosing precisely where it burns, and more importantly, who it touches. The world teaches you to react, to post, to rage, to over-explain, to justify. But reaction is a gift to your enemies. Silence is a sword they cannot block. They expect you to fall apart. They expect you to furiously defend yourself, to desperately justify your every move, to issue endless apologies. So what happens when you don't? What happens when you simply observe, unshaken, unfolding the situation like a detached strategist, not a whimpering victim, not a desperate pleaser, but a surgeon of perception? That's when fear shifts. It's no longer you fearing them. It's them questioning you. Because emotion makes you utterly predictable. But control makes you terrifying. They don't know how much you've seen. They don't know what you're planning. They don't know where your line is. And that unknown is power. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming untouchable. Because emotional discipline isn't the absence of humanity. It's the profound presence of clarity. And clarity is a rare, uncomfortable, and deeply threatening thing, especially to those who thrive by manipulating through confusion. The world will call you distant, aloof, arrogant. They will desperately beg for your reaction. They will interpret your silence as weakness. Let them. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be effective. And effectiveness requires an edge. Look at history. The leaders who built and ruled empires did not speak with trembling voices. They didn't explain their every strategic move. They mastered the art of presence. They walked into rooms and shifted gravity not with noise but with chilling restraint. Because emotion is loud, but power whispers, and that whisper pierces deeper than any scream. So the next time you're in pain, don't announce it. Harness it. Don't collapse. Convert it into resolve. And remember this: the one who keeps his calm in the face of chaos is the one who simply cannot be broken. That's the difference between those who merely survive the game and those who master it. And now, if you've ever lost power because of raw, unbridled emotion, it's time to take it back. Quietly, deliberately, completely. You've been told that speaking up is strength, that expressing yourself is necessary, that silence is weakness. But Machiavelli knew the opposite. In the unforgiving world of power, silence is not surrender. It is a potent signal. It is calculated. It is fear in its most quiet and chillingly effective form. Because silence makes people profoundly uncomfortable. It forces them to guess. And guessing is precisely where power begins to shift. The loudest person in the room is rarely the one truly in control. They speak to be noticed. They react to be respected. They explain to be accepted. But the truly dangerous man, he says nothing. He lets the room bend around his quiet, solid presence. He makes people uncertain. He lets others desperately fill in the blanks with fear, with curiosity, with extreme caution. That is power. You think silence is passive, but it is the most active tool of dominance. It demands attention without ever asking. It shifts dynamics without movement. Let me be unequivocally clear. You do not need to explain your boundaries. You do not need to justify your standards. And you absolutely do not need to voice every raw emotion to validate your experience. Sometimes power is preserved by what you don't say, by what you withhold, by what you allow others to wonder about. Because once they know what angers you, they can weaponize it. Once they know what you fear, they can control you. Once they know your limits, they can relentlessly test them. But if they know nothing, they play careful. They speak soft. They never ever assume you are weak. This is the genius of controlled silence. When you don't explain, they wonder. When you don't react, they project. When you don't chase, they question their own value. And questioning is precisely where manipulation fails. Emotional manipulators thrive on predictable reactions. But when you give them nothing, no anger, no validation, no desperate engagement, they are lost. Silence becomes your impenetrable armor, your chilling signal, your undeniable warning. The world doesn't expect you to be calm. It expects you to break, to overexpress, to give it all away in torrents of words. But the king doesn't explain his next move. The general doesn't tell the enemy where he'll strike. And you are building your kingdom now. So learn this when you're disrespected. Don't argue. Withdraw. When you're underestimated, don't prove yourself. Observe. When they expect your reaction, disappoint them with silence, because reaction is often weakness in disguise, but restraint is unmistakable power. You don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to prove to be seen. You don't have to talk to be felt. You just have to be unshakable, unmoved. And that begins in silence, the kind of silence that makes them question everything, what you know, what you want, what you're truly willing to do. That is the language of the powerful. Master it, because those who do don't get crushed. They do the crushing. And now, if the world's incessant noise has buried your true presence, it's time to become the quiet they simply cannot ignore. Machiavelli said it with stark clarity. It is not enough to be powerful. You must appear powerful. Because in this world, perception is reality, and whoever controls perception controls the entire game. People don't follow truth. They follow certainty. They follow confidence. They follow the compelling illusion that someone knows exactly what they're doing. And the master of power, he doesn't need to control facts. He only needs to shrewdly shape how those facts are seen. That's why you'll witness utterly incompetent men rise to the top. They understand image. That's why the honest, diligent worker gets overlooked consistently. He doesn't know how to perform. That's why audacious lies told boldly often win over truth spoken timidly. Machiavelli grasped something society desperately tries to hide that people want to believe. Not in what's real, but in what looks real. So if you don't actively shape their perception of you, they absolutely will. And they will always shape it to your disadvantage. You think honesty speaks for itself? It doesn't. You think your hard work will automatically earn recognition. It won't unless it's presented through the right lens. Because influence isn't about being the best. It's about being believed. And belief, my friend, is a meticulously crafted performance. Let me be clear. Controlling perception isn't lying. It's curating. It's strategic truth-telling. It's understanding that how something feels to others is far more powerful than how it actually is. Say less, but say it better. Show less, but show it stronger. Don't just be competent, be compelling. That means you don't overshare. You don't reveal weakness before it morphs into strength. You don't beg to be understood. You build a narrative so tight, so precise, so undeniably alluring that others genuinely want to believe it, because it serves their inherent need for clarity for a guiding hand. This is how true leaders emerge, not from raw talent alone, but from a carefully crafted image. You must learn how to create silence around your persona, how to cultivate mystery, how to command respect, how to project uncertainty, but the kind that makes people cautious. Let them think you know more than you say. Let them wonder what you're planning. Let them fill in the gaps with fear, with awe, with unwavering admiration. Because once you control how others feel in your presence, you control how they act in your absence. Think of perception as your armor. When it's built right, people hesitate before testing you. Not because they know what you'll do, but because they don't. That is fear by design. That is respect without negotiation. You want to stop being dismissed. Control how you enter a room. Control your tone. Control your visual image. Make your presence say more than your words ever could. Remember this, people don't treat you how you are. They treat you how they perceive you. And you possess the absolute power to engineer that perception. So do it. Do it deliberately, strategically, without a shred of shame. Because this isn't about manipulation for ego. It's about survival in a world that rarely rewards the honest but often bows to the believable. You don't have to deceive. You only need to direct. Control the spotlight. Control the silence. Control the frame. Because if you don't, someone else will. And if they control how others see you, they will inevitably control how the world treats you. You were taught to be loyal, to stand by your people, to stay true, to never ever walk away. But loyalty is not what you think it is. Machiavelli didn't trust it because he understood a brutal, inconvenient truth. Loyalty is not based on love, it's based on benefit. People are loyal to what serves them, not what saved them, not what supported them, not what sacrificed everything for them. You can bleed for someone, pour your entire soul into them, and they will still leave you. Not because you weren't loyal enough, but because your loyalty simply became irrelevant. And in the real world, irrelevance is a death sentence. We've romanticized loyalty, elevated it to a sacred, untouchable value. But in the ruthless dynamics of power, it is a transaction, a temporary contract. And like any contract, it can be broken the very moment it no longer pays off. Think about it. The devoted employees who gave their entire lives to a company laid off in a single impersonal email. The friends you covered for who disappeared the moment your reputation was on the line. The leaders who praised your unwavering loyalty until someone cheaper, someone more expedient came along. Loyalty without leverage is servitude. It's not admired, it's expected. And once it's expected, it's no longer appreciated. It becomes background noise, a given, a weakness they'll exploit. They'll say you've changed when you stop being loyal. But what they really mean is you stopped being predictable. You stopped being theirs. Machiavelli would tell you don't offer loyalty, offer value. Make them want to keep you not out of sentimental attachment, but out of absolute necessity. Because here's the ugly truth, people don't betray you for no reason. They betray you when the reason to stay becomes undeniably weaker than the reason to leave. So give them a reason, or give them distance, and never ever confuse familiarity with allegiance. Just because they've stood beside you doesn't mean they'll stay behind you. Just because they laughed with you doesn't mean they'll fight for you. Loyalty is not love, it's economics. This doesn't mean you become cold. It means you become clear. You recognize that real alliances are forged through aligned interests, not just shared history. You stop begging for loyalty and start building influence. Because when you have power, real strategic, quiet power, loyalty becomes a side effect, not a requirement. They'll stay not because you asked, but because leaving you would cost them more than they're willing to pay. That's how you make people loyal, not through sacrifice, but through significance. If you give too much for free, they'll forget its worth. If you offer unconditional loyalty, they'll test its limits until you break. So be the kind of person they simply don't want to lose, because what you bring to the table is too sharp, too potent, too valuable to replace. Not the one they can guilt, but the one they can't afford to betray. And if they do betray you, you don't collapse. You don't beg. You vanish. You let the silence do the damage. Because the moment you stop needing loyalty is the moment you start commanding it. And that's when they realize they were never loyal to you. They were loyal to what you never made them earn. You've seen what happens to the obedient. You've felt the sharp sting of betrayal, the deafening silence after countless sacrifices, the crushing absence of fairness. Now you face a choice: repeat the cycle, or fundamentally rewrite the rules. If you want to stop being crushed, you must stop living like someone who's passively waiting to be saved. Because no one is coming. Not the system, not the boss, not the person who swore they'd never leave. And that's not a tragedy. That is freedom. Machiavelli never said life is fair. He said power is earned, not by begging but by building. So build. Build a mind they can't manipulate. Build a presence they can't ignore. Build boundaries so clear, so unyielding they echo before you even speak. This isn't about revenge. It's about reconstruction. Reforging your identity into something unbreakable. Start by studying the rules not to obey them, but to understand precisely how to bend them. Know when to play invisible, when to say less, when to walk away. Not as a defeat, but as a chilling act of dominance. Because strength is not always about confrontation. Sometimes it's about detachment, about being so grounded, so unshakable, that chaos cannot even touch you. The world expects you to be reactive. They expect you to panic, to fight for their validation, to chase their crumbs of approval. So don't disappoint their expectations. Withdraw your energy from places that don't deserve it. Starve the systems that feed off your compliance. And while they scramble for attention, you build leverage. Learn skills that cannot be ignored. Create value that doesn't beg for recognition. Develop a presence that speaks before you even utter a word. You don't need to roar. You need to rise quietly, strategically, like a shadow that becomes utterly unavoidable. This is not about arrogance. It's about authorship. About finally realizing that your life was never meant to be lived by their design. So design your own. Set your standards. Enforce your space. Refuse to explain your evolution. The right people will adapt. The wrong ones will fade. Let them. Machiavelli would tell you the lion survives by strength, the fox by cunning, but the one who blends both becomes untouchable. You must become both, not by discarding your morals, but by fiercely protecting them with fire. Because good intentions without fierce protection are just invitations for exploitation. So protect them. Be kind but calculated. Be generous but guarded. Be open but not exposed. Your softness is not the problem. Your lack of strategy is. Fix that. Because in this world, goodness without strength is silence, and silence without presence is death. But presence backed by clarity, that's power. The kind of power that never begs to be seen. It demands nothing yet takes everything it chooses, and once you taste that, you will never ever go back. And when they wonder how you changed, let them. Because you didn't just survive, you rewrote the rules. This wasn't a motivational speech. It was a raw, unforgiving wake-up call. Because no one ever told you the true price of being blind. No one told you that in a world so cruelly ruled by perception, by conditional loyalty, and by strategic silence, the kind-hearted often become the prey. You thought being good was enough, that doing the right thing would magically protect you, that your pain meant something, that your sacrifices would one day come back around. But now you know they don't. Not unless you change. Not unless you stop waiting for justice and start fiercely creating your own terms. This is not about becoming ruthless. It's about becoming responsible for your own power. It's about owning the space you've always shrunk yourself to fit into, and realizing that the world never hated your goodness. It just loved your compliance. Machiavelli didn't write for kings. He wrote for survivors. For those who got tired of being used. For those who were done being stepped on, dismissed, and silenced. He didn't teach you to destroy. He taught you to endure with intention. To rise not blindly but strategically. To speak only when silence has done its formidable job. You don't have to become heartless, but you do have to become clear. Because clarity is the antidote to manipulation, and presence is the death of exploitation. So ask yourself who benefits when you stay quiet, who profits when you stay small, and what would your life truly look like if you stopped waiting for permission to take up the space you inherently deserve? This isn't the end. It's the very first page of a new script, written by you, played by you, defined by no one else. No more hoping to be chosen. No more bleeding for applause. No more mistaking obedience for virtue. You've seen the lie. Now you choose the truth. Not to be feared, but to be free. Now tell me, are you ready to become untouchable? Then start here, one thought at a time, one boundary at a time, one quiet move at a time. The world won't save you, but you can write the story where you no longer need to be saved. And that, my friend, is the first taste of real power.